There's some new elves on the block and they are prancy, dancy, watery folk. That's right, it's the Dandy Bank River Spanks, baby!
That was beautiful.
Welcome to War Games on Toast, all of you lovely people. It's me, it's Toast. How are you this wonderful Wednesday? It's that time again where we all get new toys and I get to gush like a waterfall about some new stuff that we've got to add to our piles of shame. The Lumineth Realm Lords have got a fancy new and moist Warcry warband in the form of the YDRILAN Riverblades, or just Riverblades for short. I've managed to get a fair few games under my belt and I think I'm ready to give you my first impressions on these rather soggy ladies. But before we get into all that, please consider leaving a like, a comment and subscribing, as that helps me fight against that dastardly YouTube algorithmic demon. And if you want to help the channel out in a more tangible way, then please consider joining my Patreon or my YouTube members, like all of these amazing people on screen now. And with all of that out of the way, let's get on with the show.
And now for something completely different.
Kicking things off, we have their reaction, Lethal Gaia. This thing is like Counter if Counter was less reliable but far more dangerous. This reaction has me dancing between "this is amazing" and "oh my god, do literally anything" on the regular. In short, when you are attacked in melee, that lad takes 3 whole damage for every one they roll. That's pretty darn snazzy because everyone's hitting your guys on a 3+, so 50% of their misses are actually doing 3 damage. On average, this should do about the same amount of damage as Counter does, but in reality, this is very much all or nothing. You will do a massive chunk of damage, or you will die in vain. The big twist here is fighters with the Agile Wound Mark. They actually inflict 3 damage on the attacker and then an additional 3 damage on all other enemies within 1 inch. And this is wild. The potential for catastrophic AoE damage is palpable, and your opponents should be very concerned when attacking into all of your agile fighters. In fact, with this reaction, what you can and should do from time to time is launch an agile fighter into the middle of a group of already activated things that you want to tie up. This forces your opponent to do a few things. Firstly, they can attack you and kill you, but that risks the AoE boomer. Secondly, they can disengage and move around you, but this slows them down. And thirdly, they can do the second thing, but with a really big expensive model and be really sad about it. This is a control reaction that will pop off every now and then and just delete things for fun. It is feast or famine though. Overall, I love this and I think people are going to have a blast setting things up and mind gaming the bejesus out of people. It's so cool. Moving on to our core abilities, these are abilities that everybody can use and the Riverblades have a fair few to go over. Riverblades. The Riverblades namesake, Riverblades, is possibly my favourite double in the entire game. This is value incarnate and incredibly powerful for a double. Basically, you get all the benefits of Rush, so +1 movement. You then get to roll a dice after every action, bar weight. And on a 2+, you deal 1 damage to any enemy within 8 inches. Your lads just run around and throw daggers at people and it's awesome. The potential plays here are huge. Firstly, 1 to 2 damage chipping away at chaff is not insignificant. Secondly, 1 to 2 damage chipping away at high toughness targets is not insignificant. Thirdly, your guys can chip away the last couple of wounds from dying enemies without having to attack them. For example, you can double move 12 onto a far objective whilst throwing Riverblades to hold time and kill some mook without ever having to slow your roll. But let's keep this going. This is better than Onslaught in most cases because your guys tend to do low damage. So now you get to attack, Riverblade, attack, Riverblade. And those 2 Riverblades are hitting on 2+, not the usual 5+. And that's awesome. How about attacking one guy in front of you whilst pelting Riverblades at the guy across the board? What about moving Riverblade shooting, Riverblade to maximize your movement and damage output. And of course, this ignores things like counter and the Quest or Soul Swan reaction, which is awesome. The list of plays here goes on and on and on. It's outstanding even if it is just chip damage, and that chip adds up and it has so many applications. Now, super bulky things like ogres won't really care until they're on low wounds, but you know what will? They're nobblers. So it's always a fun time. It's a great ability. You will use this all the time, and you should use this all the time. It's very powerful. Standing wave stance. Standing wave stance is cool and unusual. In a warband that seems to encourage movement, standing wave stance does the complete opposite. You stand still and you gain all of the stats. All of the stats. You get +1 attack and +1 strength in melee and +1 toughness in general. None of these things are insignificant, but most of these will only really apply to your more elite elves. That being said, those elite elves will have a field day. Your big hitters really hit, so getting buffs to your damage output and durability is incredibly powerful. The downside is you cannot move before or after you use this ability. Kind of. The wording is very specific and states during this activation. What does this mean? It means you can be moved, say by Calthea Zandaya, and still activate standing wave stance on your activation. That being said, a lot of moves are quite expensive, so pulling off that combo will at the very least require a double and a triple, if not a triple and a triple. But again, that price could be worth it, because if you pull it off, the thing you just hit is really going to be hurting when they wake up in the morning. Boiling Wrath. Boiling Wrath is one of the most interesting quads we've had in a while. It does nothing at all until something dies. Once things start dying, it goes kind of crazy. You gain a bonus move, attack, or disengage for every ally who has died in this model's battle group that game. This is incredibly powerful on your leaders, who we will get to momentarily. But imagine you have a battle group of 4 and 3 of your laddies die. Now you have 3 bonus actions in addition to your standard 2. You now have all the mobility in the world to get to where you want to and kill whoever you want, and do both at the same time potentially. Now, suiciding your elves to power up a quad does seem a little bit silly, but remember, you have a reaction that incentivizes a degree of danger. Not only can you pop off with your reaction, but every dead elf is charging your quad for the rest of the game, like a rather grim battery. But of course, you should never build around quads, but having a quad plan for when you can quad is always a good idea. So if you are going to suicide elves, try and suicide the elves from the guy you want to quad in the future potentially, to get the most value out of that suiciding reaction play. And like a lot of stuff in this warband, if and when it pops off, it will pop off so hard it will tear a hole in your jeans. Enough rambling about abilities though, it's time to look at the meat and the potatoes and look at all those juicy elves who we've been talking about in vagaries. And we start with the Pure Blood Seneschal. We have 3 of those. The Pure Flood is outstanding. Made of paper, but outstanding. She comes in 3 flavors and they are all good, but 2 of them are really, really good. They all have movement 5, toughness 4, and 18 wounds, and we will start with the Warglaive. This is the worst option in my opinion. 4525 and range 2 is actually very good though. The range really helps keep this squishy lady alive, and the volume of high strength attacks is very, very nice. The 2-5 damage is also fine. It's just outclassed by the next option, the Master Blades. These guys are stupid, like actually ridiculous. 5-4-3-4 is crazy good, bonkers good. Let's throw up the unique double that all the Pure Floods have, the White Crest Strike. You just get +1 strength, so if you need to bump your strength, you can. 5-5-3-4 is even better, but what if we slapped on a strength blessing? Well, now you're 5534 at base and can scale to 5634. Well, what about standing wave stance? Hot damn, you're 6634. This lady is a damage monster. She can cleave through just about anything she gets her hands on. She's just very squishy. If she ever gets caught, she will die, and she is not cheap. None of these are. That being said, if you can keep her safe and apply her damage to the fullest, she will rend a hole through Sigma himself. And of course, a fully powered blessed quad is something ludicrous like 25534. You love to see crazy numbers like that. The final variant is the Dart Lady, and she is actually my current favourite because she seems to synergize with the mobile nature of the Riverblades more than any other, and this is down to her ranged attack. It comes with range 8 and no minimum with a 4423 profile, which is really good for a ranged attack. 2-3 damage is super consistent, 4 shots is a lot, and strength 4 is high for a ranged attack, especially when you factor in +1 strength blessings and white crest strike. And don't forget, you can throw all these darts out and still use Riverblades to throw more daggers, which is really cool. She does a lot of work and works very well with Thundering Strides, Fight for Profit, or the Scryhawk ability from Lumineth. Now, it is important to note that this variant has the least amount of synergy with standing wave stance, as the strength and the attack bonuses do not work on range attacks, sadly. So clearly all three of these are excellent in combat, but what makes them very interesting outside of the Riverblades themselves is their sneaky other triple. That's right, they have 2, and it's called Release the River. You give everyone within 6 inches 1 to 3 inches of bonus move every move action. This is incredible if you are running this as an ally in slower warbands, or if you have slow allies in your list, or if you just want your elves to run around with more haste. This is an outstanding ability that Order has been missing for a while now, and it's great to see it back, and it gives the Pure Flood a wonderful amount of support to accompany their incredible amounts of damage. And there's more. They also have Rapid's Rising Leap to add to their toolkit, which lets them fly provided they don't move over 3 inches vertically. This is really good for getting around. They have everything. These guys are unbelievable value. You just need to keep them safe because you lose so much when they die, and they die so easily. Don't let it happen. Crest Dancers. We have 2 of those. Next, we have the Crest Dancers, who are sadly pretty bad. Movement 5, Toughness 4, and Wounds 10 is good, and bad. Wounds 10 is really bad for a model over 100 points, and these guys are 15 whole points over, so you are paying a lot for paper. Sure, Toughness 4 is nice, but that won't go far, so surely these guys can do some damage to offset that? No. Not really. The Twin Spear is range 2, 3424, which is nice, and the range 2 will keep them alive. But for something this soft, I would have expected to see something more substantial on the damage front. And the Roped Sickle, whilst being range 3, is 4414, which I do prefer. The issue is, it's still not that great in terms of output. You're paying a lot of points for what ultimately is only slightly better than chaff in other factions. I mean, look at this guy and this guy in comparison. It's not good. It's not good at all. The plus sides, they do get Rapid's Rising Leap, so they can fly, which is nice. And of course, they get the Standing Wave Stance, which is also nice. But sadly, I think you just skip these guys. They don't do enough to warrant their price, and that's a real shame. Stream Runners. We have 2 of those. Stream Runners are our chaff, and they come in 2 flavors. Crest Blades and River Steel Weapons. They both have Movement 5, Toughness 3, and 8 wounds for 65 points, which is a standard elf defensive line and cost. Offensively, they are just as elfy with a 4-3-1-2 on the Crestblades and a 3-3-1-3 on the River Steel weapons. Of the two, I think the Crestblades are the way to go. The reason for that is that their damage output is basically the same, but Crestblades get the Agile rune mark, which allows them to AoE react, which is a big boon. Other than that, they have no added extras, they are just chaff. They are also very, very cheap. You can easily get a 9 to 10 man warband with allies included because your chaff don't cost that much. They also won't do that much because they are low impact pieces, but with Riverblades being thrown around everywhere, their reaction popping off here and there, and the general power of movement in Warcry being high in objective games, they can do a lot of work, and I like these laddies a lot. And surprisingly, that's it. There are only 3 guys in this warband, which feels a little bit light, honestly. You expect to see closer to 4 or 5 units in a warband, so 3 feels very limited, but we do have allies and there are a fair few solid picks to choose from. Firstly, you have things like Annihilator Primes, Retributor Primes, Rune Fathers and the like, slow moving things that can be accelerated with Release the River. These guys going from movement 3 to up to movement 6 is stupidly good and something you really want to do. This is a very powerful combination you can run, and any of these work wonders. These also add bulk to your list, which is something you are sorely missing as standard. Next we have Questor, Soulsworn, and I love these guys because they offer reasonable bulk and damage for a great price. They also have support with Thundering Strides to get your guys around the board easier. This is especially good on your melee Pure Flood, as they can move on a double and then triple standing wave stance on the same turn. This is a very powerful combination of abilities that is unlocked at its cheapest here. They're all good, I just recommend the Relicta for the added range threat, although hammers also work wonders. Hexbane is next, and Hexbane is really good. Hexbane himself is well priced for his stats, and that's a good thing. He just brings a lot to the table and always performs. He also brings a lot of good Bladeborn with him, such as Quiet Pock, who is outstanding at projecting threat, giving you a long range damage AoE. You also get 2 dogs who are cheaper than your elves, allowing you to have even more chaff on the board, which is great. They are also ideal for suiciding, as you have 2 quads that trigger on death with Hexbane Cross Riverblades. Let's throw in some more support. We have things like the Caradon Overlords with the Chemist and the Captains, which add Fight for Profit into the mix, which makes your range stuff even better. This is really good for darts and really great if you ally in Pock. Or how about Calthea Zandai to boost your action economy and offer bulk on top of that. I also like the High Sentinel because you can use Scryhawk to increase your range damage output. Again, great with darts and Pock. And finally, the Blood Rack Medusa comes in as a bulky, fast lass who has a net. She's a solid all-around ally who works in most things, and she absolutely works here. She can even boost her own damage output. Just be aware the Medusa is a massive resource sink for sure. And before we sign off, let's look at some lists that I have tried. We have this Seneschal with sword or darts, the Annihilator Prime, a Retributor Prime, and 6 Agile Stream Runners. This list is super simple. Your main kill force is your 3 drop of Seneschal and Primes. Your goal here is to use Release the River early to get them up the board as quickly as possible. These guys are very tough and can do a lot of damage. The Retributor can also throw up a toughness buff and move for free, which is very handy, especially with Release the River. Your Stream Runners are here to burn Riverblades for cheap damage, harass things, get in the way, take objectives, and generally be a pain in the arse. If you see an opportunity to get value out of their reaction, you absolutely take that. Their 4-3-1-2 attack line isn't great, but if you see an opportunity to hit other chaff, get in there and tap them. Don't forget, Riverblades will help you out here for your damage output. This is a 9-strong warband, so you are having a good time in terms of model numbers, and you can even go around and change things up. For example, if you take off the strength blessing on the Seneschal, you can take 2 Annihilator Primes if you want even more bulk and damage. It's kind of wild. Now, if you wanted a bit more of a ranged game, you could take something like this. We have the Seneschal with darts and strength, Hexbane, Pock with strength, Ratspike, Grotbiter, and Ether Chemist with strength, and 3 agile streamrunners. This is another 9-man warband, this time focused on Pock, the Dart Seneschal, and the Chemist combo, and fight for profit. The only issue here is that you risk being a bit too static if you aren't actively trying to not be static, but on the plus side, the Chemist is quite the beast with that flamethrower, and definitely disincentivizes people throwing away units to pressure Pock, who very much likes the extra shot or 4. Don't be afraid to spend early turns moving with Release the River to get into better positions for more impact later in the game. And finally, we have my current list that I really enjoy running, and it is the Seneschal with darts, Hexbane, Pock, a High Sentinel, and 6 streamrunners. This is a 10-man list, and it's all about projecting ranged threat and staying away from people and using your high model count, Riverblades, and reaction to control the board. This is very good in objective games, but it can struggle in kill games, even if it can kill things due to its high value range stuff. This list is less static than the Chemist variants and has more model count, but its actual damage output is notably lower, so bear that in mind. And like always, take these lists as a base and then expand upon them and improve them to fit your own style. In conclusion, I like the Riverblades, but I am concerned that they are going to end up being allies more than main factions. I've spent a lot of this video being quite positive because the positives are really high. The issue is there's a lot of negatives that kind of get pushed under all those positives that will start to crop up. The Pure Flood is incredibly powerful, and I can see many Order warbands lapping her up for her power and support. And sadly, base Lumineth with a Pure Flood might be better than running Riverblades. Sure, you lose out on the funky reaction and the sexy daggers, but base Lumineth just have more options and better stats. The biggest disappointment here is the lack of variety. Sure, you have 7 total variants, but you only have 3 units, and one of them's kinda bad, which leaves the actual box feeling kinda naff. It really is the Pure Flood and her streamrunner buddies plus some allies, and I don't really find that massively interesting. A lot of their power comes from taking allies and their cheap chaff, but there's not much meat to this warband. It very much is 2 guys and some mates, right? So I'm a bit torn. Overall, I do like them a lot, and I have had an absolute blast playing them. They feel like a more refined version of something like Cypher Lords or Corvus Cabal, which is weird and a admittedly fairly low bar, but I would say we have a A-tier allied choice for Order, backed by a fairly mid-tier faction, which is absolutely fine by me. Despite their flaws, I can see a lot of people enjoying the Riverblades like me. But from a critical analysis point of view, I would have liked to see another unit, something to make them stand out a little bit more. But that's it. That's the end of the video. If you liked what you saw and would like to see some more, then please consider hitting like, leaving a comment and subscribing. A huge thank you to my patrons and members who help support the channel, and a massive shout out to my algorithmic demon slayers, Armor Enthusiast 7, Brioche, CT6497, Girth Demon, the Head Knight of Paint, Heinz D, Long Run Hobbies, Lord Fileaxe, Sam, Tough, Tootin' Baby, and Velas. Until next time, lads, ladies, and everyone in between and beyond, ta-ra.